our personal glucose response will vary on a food every single day. They're my two nutrition fundamentals. I just think it's a bit nonsense. It's a bit reaching. It's a bit far-fetched. So I do believe the way that we eat affects how we feel.
Yeah.
True.
100%.
Meal compositions, but meal context, meal timings, all those things. Even as human beings, our personal glucose response will vary on a food every single day, the same food.
Yeah.
So when people are trying to kind of like say, oh, this glucose response is going to be the magic bullet that we've always been searching for to explain everything.
Yeah.
I just think it's a bit nonsense. It's a bit reaching. It's a bit far-fetched. People don't need to be wandering around with glucose monitors that kind of type 1 diabetics wear. But if it is something that you find interesting about your own body, like the same way that you wear a sleep tracking device or a step monitor, fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely fine. And I always want to empower people to make choices about their own bodies, as long as it's not damaging your health or putting your health at risk.
Yes.
I always encourage kind of meal context and meal compositions. Is why I always talk about protein and fiber in everything.
Yes.
And if I do have a little sweet treat, it tends to be after a complete meal with protein and fiber in anyway. So I don't fear the sugar.
Yes.
And a blood glucose spike is a normal physiological response to eating and to food and to carbohydrates.
Yes.
But it's... you have to really understand your pattern of eating. Are you waking up and just like caning the sugar to kind of keep you going, then you're crashing, and then you go on this roller coaster, and then you're eating too much sugar too late at night, and it's disturbing your sleep, and that sleep disturbance is then impacting your performance and your cravings. And I say it's the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes in health and wellness, we get so fixated on these tiny details into the one singular thing, blood glucose spike.
Yeah.
It's not the blood glucose spike. It's everything in context.
Yeah. And I think, if you wore a continuous glucose monitor with that number of steps, it'd be unlikely we'd see any surges of glucose. But your point there again, and you talked about this before.
What about after my advent calendar?
Well, again, we can isolate that. And again, we're all for advent calendars. But that, the principle there, again, you mentioned it, is have your sweet treat after your protein and fiber-rich meal, and you'll see a decreased response. And what we see with people wearing those monitors, if you are interested in optimizing the results, then try and match Emily's step count and see if your glucose is spiking. So puddings rather than isolated carbohydrate and movement
100%.
seem to be the key.
I think as well, so breakfast is, I think, probably the biggest area of discussion around this, because obviously breakfast, breaking your fast, what kind of meal composition are we thinking about when it comes to blood sugar response? We tend to be best at metabolizing carbohydrates early in the morning anyway. But some people do just perform better having a bit more of a blood sugar stabilizing breakfast. It keeps them fuller for longer. It keeps them more content. It keeps them more focused, more energized. Yet some people, say for me, I'm really active. If I wake up and have a bowl of oats and I make it using normal cow's milk, so I'm still getting in my protein. I don't have to put in protein powder. I can put in protein powder if I want, topping it with an extra bit of yogurt. Even though I'm having quite a high glycemic load when it comes to the oats and the natural sugars in the milk, I'm busy.
Yes.
I'm active.
Yes.
I'm using that like a normal body would. And I think sometimes we're now getting so scared of glycemic foods, removing the context of the fact that I'm not just eating that and going,
absolutely,
and then not doing anything.
100%. In that sense, these are high energy foods, but if you're leading a high energy life, then you might be able to offset that. I think there's also, again, if you're doing that volume of exercise, there'll probably be some depletion of your stored carbohydrate. So you've got greater ability to store muscle glycogen. Someone who's been inactive for 2 days before has a different response. So that context does seem to be missing. And, so therefore, I don't want to do the classic thing and hold you to an ideal breakfast, but there's a general sense that probably a more protein-centric breakfast is a universally recommended thing.
Yeah.
Your great-grandparents got something from drinking water that you probably don't. Over the last century, we've made water safer to drink, on the whole, but something has been lost in the process. Natural water sources once provided essential minerals that our bodies evolved with over thousands of years. Today's water, even premium bottled source water, contains 78% fewer minerals than it did just a century ago. In fact, you'd have to drink 1.5 bathtubs to replenish the minerals that you lose in a litre of sweat. So if you think your water is hydrating you optimally, think again. Pure Sport, a company that I personally trust and use, solves this problem for high performers through their ultra electrolytes. a science-backed ratio of electrolytes in one single sachet. Optimize your hydration and leave the bath for bathing. Use our exclusive discount code EE10 at www.puresport.co for 10% off.
So for me, 20 up to 40 grams of protein for breakfast.
Great.
Is always the target. And there are so many ways you can boost it. I mean, what's the normal formula? 2 eggs,
Yep.
slice of toast, probably some butter.
Yep.
Maybe someone's going to put some tomatoes with it. Who knows?
Yeah.
If I'm going to boost that, I would take my 2 eggs. I always have a carton of egg whites in my fridge as well. I'll scramble those, tip an extra blob in.
Yeah.
I'm suddenly getting an extra 10 grams. And then over my toast, what am I going to put on? Maybe some cottage cheese with some honey and chilies, for like that hot honey cottage cheese. What diversity am I going to throw in there? Wilted spinach, add some lemon juice to absorb more iron, roasted tomatoes, maybe some sliced mushrooms, beans.
Yeah.
Really good source of fiber. Then suddenly I'm having this like massive protein-centric breakfast, big bulk, lots of diversity, happy gut microbiome. I don't think about food until 1.
Yeah.
And I'm ready. I'm so fueled and ready for the day. And it just keeps me so perfectly balanced. And it's one of those things, like, we forget as well, like, protein, you do get it from your slice of bread.
Yeah.
Like 3 grams of protein. Even like the whatever you can add to it. But if you can just make sure that every single plate that you put together and you design, you always have that protein and fiber focus.
Yes.
If you focus on the fiber, you're naturally going to focus on diversity anyway.
Yes.
Then you're good to go. They're my 2 nutrition fundamentals I just think people should adhere to, and it will change their life.
It will change their life. And that diversity plays in those fibers you're talking about. And you've mentioned this phrase, gut microbiome. So this trillions of bacteria largely in our sort of large intestine. You focus on that enormously in your nutritional approach. Where does the gut microbiome and energy interface? Do those 2 things link together?
So your gut pretty much links to every single thing in your body. And if you're thinking about prioritizing one aspect of your health this year, looking after your gut is so key.
Love that.
And everyone's gut microbiome is unique.
Yep.
As unique as your own fingerprint. And the way that we respond to food is actually kind of dependent on your gut microbiome and its composition. So if we're thinking about gut microbiome and energy, one of my biggest comparisons to how your kind of feelings and your emotions affect your gut microbiome is that whenever you're nervous, whenever you're anxious, whenever you're going for a job interview, you need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And that's a direct link between your mood and your emotions and your gut.
Absolutely.
So if you're thinking about your energy levels and how you're feeling and that level of kind of like brightness, if you have a good, healthy, balanced, diverse gut microbiome, that will directly link into helping you feel more energized.
Absolutely.
Helping you get more energy from your food, helping you digest and break down and absorb. So yeah, for me, the gut microbiome is my obsession at the moment. I love it.
And you're into prebiotics and probiotics. We've seen the boom of fermented foods.
Yeah.
So foods that have live bacteria in them. Where do you stand on the general access to fermented foods? Are they good, as you would see it? Yeah. So
definitely good. Fermented foods are a brilliant thing to add to your diet.
Yeah.
Sometimes people go a bit overkill. And I always say, like, your gut is like going to the gym. You've got to train it up. And I think sometimes people think, I'm going to look after my gut health. So I'm going to do whole tin of beans, this big pot of kimchi, have some coffee. And they get to the end of the day and they're like, oh my God, like, I am not feeling okay. This gut health stuff is rubbish because I feel terrible.
Yeah.
Where you don't go up to the squat rack and do a 100 kg squat.
Yes.
You hurt yourself. Yeah. And you don't go up to gut health and look to improve your gut by just like piling in all of the kind of fermented foods. So if you want to incorporate these fermented foods, fantastic. They're really good for you. Data suggests that they are health promoting. Yeah. The only thing is they are quite expensive sometimes, especially the really good stuff, the stuff that actually is fermented, the stuff that actually has live cultures and bacteria in.
Yes.
I tend to find that it's the kind of dairy products, so the BioLife yogurts, the kefirs that tend to be the most kind of like moderately priced.
Yep.
So they're brilliant to get in. So the next time you are kind of having a snack or a snack bowl, if you want to do something that's good for your gut health, get in one of the kefir yogurts or the BioLife yogurts, top with a few extra kind of nuts and seeds. I make my own homemade granola. It's in my recipe book.
I know.
And then top with frozen berries. Love frozen berries.
Yeah,
Most
so good.
economical and brilliant way to buy them. Raspberries, super high in all these lovely prebiotic fibers, which again, prebiotic food, fuel for the gut microbiome.
Yes.
So getting in more of those kind of live bacterial foods and also those prebiotics is a brilliant way to support your gut, but don't do all at once.
Yes.
Build it up stepwise.
I hear that entirely.